honor, and praise for all that you're doing for us. Even now, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We ask that you turn with me today to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. And it reads as follows. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it, that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy sons and thy sons' sons, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Our subject today is the rules of the game. The rules of the game. Amen. Leading up to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 3, the writer Moses is speaking to the children of Israel just before they are to go into the land of promise. Up to this point, the children of Israel had been in a state of wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses wanted to remind them of God's law and rehearse to them everything that God had done for them and every promise God had made to them. Life will sometimes cause us to forget how good God is. Yes. When we start to reminisce on all that God has done, it allows us not to forget that we serve an awesome God. Amen. A God that has been there for us. Moses repeatedly encouraged them to obey God and reminds them about the events that took place in the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. He tells them that their life in the land of promise will be either a blessing or a curse, depending on their ability to walk after God and his laws. How we are living determines how we live. We can live with God or without God. But living without God will not turn out to be the best in the end. Moses warned the children of Israel about the sins which had kept their fathers from entering into the promised land. People who have gone through issues or problems in their life, they oftentimes tell those that's behind them what to avoid. Because they don't want them to go through the same pitfalls. That's right. If I'm filling the ditch and I know where the ditch is, I'm going to tell you so that you can avoid the ditch. That's right. However, we are people that sometimes don't want to listen to wise counsel. That's right. Counsel that tell you if ditch is coming, we say, well, let me make my own mistake. Let me go and do it my own way. That's what they say. Moses didn't want them to go through what their fathers went through. He said, look, they've been here for 40 years. 40 years. Matter of fact, they're not here no more. That's right. They didn't get to go into the promised land, but you do. And I don't want you to make the same problems or same issue that they did, because They were stuck for 40 years, and I don't want you to be stuck for another 40 years.
Right.
He explains to them what it is likely to happen if they refuse to trust God when difficult situations arise.
Amen.
If we don't trust God, we will easily accept or succumb to doubt, fear, worry, and disobedience. Thus pushing God to the side and allowing us to be motivated to do things our own way.
Amen.
So instead of listening to God, we say, I got this by my own self. We want to understand, this life that we live, we can't live on our own.
Amen.
You got to have God first at the forefront of whatever we do.
Amen.
Moses then focuses on God's laws and emphasizes on following God's statutes, religious ordinances, and living with one another as a people of God. He was letting them know that they were children of God. When you're a child of God, God expects you to walk and talk and act a certain kind of way. He doesn't expect you to act one way when you're in the house of God and then leave the house of God and act a whole different way. What I see on Sunday, I should see on Monday. What I see on Monday, I should see on Tuesday. All the way to the next, so I see you next on Sunday. It means to live holy Monday through Sunday. Or Sunday to Sunday. 8 days a week.
That's right.
When we look at Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 3, we know that Moses was given instructions by God to give to the children of Israel. These are the same instructions God expects us to follow today. So whatever God spoke to Moses in the book of Exodus, and Deuteronomy, and Leviticus, he's saying those are the same laws I want you to follow today.
Right.
We can't say, well, that's old news. No, that's today.
All right.
It starts off with Moses indicating that what he was about to tell the children of Israel came directly from God. Sometimes as a people, we want to know where or who gave the instructions before we decide to follow them. Isn't that like how children act? Who's giving the instructions, you or the parent? If it's you giving me the instructions, I'm not going to listen.
That's right. Amen. All right.
What he was giving them were rules that they were to follow and obey when they stepped into the land of promise. He did not want them to continue following the rules they were used to following for the past 400 plus years.
Yes.
Moses was trying to emphasize to them that the rules they were following were man's rules and not God's rules. Meaning you were living your life any old kind of way, but God is saying before you go into the land of promise, I need you to put things in order. I can't allow you to just be out of order and expect me to bless you. I'm about to bless you, and in order for me to bless you, I need you to be in right standing with me.
Amen.
Isn't that how we are?
Amen.
You're not going to bless your child if they're not in right standing with you.
That's right.
You're going to make sure that everything is in order.
That's right.
If your child is acting in all kind of way, not following your instructions, doing everything they want to do, you're going to say, okay, do what you want to do, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and the blessings that were going to come your way, they're not going to come your way. And then when you're looking for the blessings, you're going to say, where the blessings? Well,
We're not obedient.
God has been looking for us to be obedient. Moses was also trying to stir them in the direction of reverencing God based on the word being spoken to them. He doesn't want them to take what God was saying lightly, acting like it doesn't mean anything or there was no value to what God has to say or has said to them. He lets them know that what he is saying is not for them only, but for every generation after them. So what Moses was telling them, he said, no, this is not just for you now, but it's going to be for your children's children's children.
All right.
He goes on to let them know that God will bless all who obey his rules with a long and prosperous life. Which means if you want to be prosperous and you want to live long, just follow the instructions of the Lord. Follow the rules. Are we following and obeying the rules of God? Moses then called the children of Israel out by letting them know that he is serious about everything he has told them about following the rules. Meaning, don't take this lightly. It's not just something you can just push to the side, go in one ear and go out the other ear as if I was saying nothing. No, take it seriously. He wants them to know that God promised he would bless them, but it is through their obedience of God's words that will ensure that their lives are filled with abundance and the land that floweth with milk and honey. In other words, he was telling them they can live in the land of abundance and not be a partaker of the abundance if they are not in line with God. Amen. So you can be in the presence of a whole lot of blessings and not be a partaker. And many of us, God has blessings for us, but we're not able to partake of the blessings. He says I have the table prepared, but it's not prepared for you. So all you get to do is watch while everybody else is eating at the table and being blessed left and right, and you're saying, when is my blessing? When you going to move on my behalf? And God is saying, when are you going to obey my rules?
All right. Amen.
Now, how does all these scriptures relate to our topic, the rules of the game? Many of us are playing the game called life, but we don't know the rules. Knowing the rules will provide the necessary guidance and direction on how to win the game. It allows us to know what the enemy and life can and cannot do. It also deters cheating. Knowing the rules also determines how the game is played, as well as control the changing of the rules of the game on a whim. Sometimes we like to change rules when we feel like it.
Amen.
Without knowing the rules, we cannot be successful.
Amen.
So how can you achieve success if you don't know how success or know how to achieve success? You want to be great, but you don't want to know the rules to be great. He said you got to follow the rules of the game to know how to be all you need to be.
Amen.
Deuteronomy 6:1-3 was letting us know that God has given us the rules, and all we have to do is follow them. All Moses was doing was rehearsing to them what they already knew. We already know how to live. We don't have to wonder, well, how should I live? You already know. You've been around God long enough to know how to know what he wants.
That's right.
What he expects from you. Even if you wasn't walking with the Lord for a long time, you know what you should be doing, what you not should be doing.
That's right.
You know right from wrong. We sometimes try to forget what we know. If we forget what we know or ignore what we know, how can we expect to be successful? Life also has a way of causing us to make our own rules and decisions based on the various issues and problems that we are forced to deal with. When things are not going the way we thought it should go, is it because we have decided to walk away from the rules of the game? Moses did not want our decisions as it pertains to life to be clouded with bad judgments and the wrong rules. Oftentimes, I'm a player of Uno. And oftentimes when you play Uno, it just so happens to be a whole lot of rules to the game. Some play one way, and then some people play another way. It is amazing that I noticed that an old generation, we play one style of play, such as if I put out a draw 4, you can put out a draw 4. A new way of playing is you can I'll put down a draw 4, you can put down a draw 2. Doesn't alters the game. It's like, how does that don't add up? Some people, you put down one set of cards, I can put down a 3. If you have 2 and 3 threes in your hand, you decide I'm gonna put all 3s down. It sounds good. It may make the game go quicker, but that's not how we would talk the game. It's like if I have a draw of 3, you can put down a draw of 1, 3. Only one. You can't just put down 3 and 4 because you have 3 and 4 on your hand. And so, and as the game goes by, you play with different people, you find out the rules of the game changes because we change it on a whim. We try to change it to fit our situation. And God says the rules of the game can't be changed for your situation. He said, I set the rules a certain way, and this is what you have to follow from now on. Good word, good word. In today's society, we want to change the rules of the game. We want to call right wrong and wrong right. We want to live our lives any way we want to, and say we are saved by grace. We want to take on the law. We want to take the laws and commandments given to us in the Old Testament and say they are no longer valid in the New Testament because Jesus died for our sins. We want to say the standards of holiness does not require us to spend time in prayer, reading the Word, and fellowshipping in the house of God. We can watch TV at home and watch the service on the internet, and that'll be all right. Today, God is saying the rules of the game have not changed. As I said a few minutes ago, we want to change the rules. We want to say it doesn't take all that. God says it does take all that because it's in my rules. If it's in my rules, that's what I'm looking for. It's like the speed limits. If the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, you can break the rules. You can modify it by going faster, but the rules say drive 20. So when you drive 35 and 45 and 55 and you get a ticket, it's because you decided to change the rules of the game. I like that. There are consequences when we break the rules. And when Moses was telling the children of Israel, don't break the rules because you're not going to like the consequences. Because I lived through the consequences and I saw what the consequences did to the people who decided to disobey. What happened? They died in the wilderness. They forfeited the promise that they could have had. They gave it up. And God said the rules of the game is for us so that we don't forfeit what I have for you. I don't want you to forfeit your blessing. But you have to follow the rules of the game. The rules of the game will help us to navigate through whatever life throws our way. Life is throwing a whole lot of things our way. As a believer, we don't like what life is throwing our way. That's why God said, I gave you the rules of the game. So that when life throws some things your way that you don't like, you'll know how to handle what you're going through. That's why God tells us to know the rules, rehearse the rules, and read the rules daily. The lifestyle of a believer is tied to the rules of the game. We are either going to follow the rules or not follow them, but we can't complain when things start to fall apart simply because we refuse to follow the rules. Whatever we do in life, God says, remember the rules of the game.
Amen.
The rules of the game will keep us in perfect peace. They provide us with the proper guidance and direction to handle life situations. It is the answer to our problems. By following the rules of the game allows God to be able to fight for us. God tends to those who are obedient to his rules. We want God to fight for us. We want God to stand in the gap. We want God to move our situation. We want God to heal and deliver us and set us free. God saying, are you following the rules of the game? When you go through problems and issues, the rules of the game say pray. The rules of the game don't say complain. Rules of the game don't tell us to worry and doubt and all those different things that we find ourselves into doing. Rules of the game says when things begin to happen, get in my face. The rules of the game says stay in my word. Take time out to fast and pray. Get God, because when we do those things, we're getting guidance and direction from God. We don't always like following the rules of the game. They don't always add up to our agenda. We have one agenda. When we look at the rules of the game, they have a completely different agenda. Sometimes they require and call for us to sacrifice, surrender, place God first over our own dreams, desires, goals, and will. We want to do things our way and how we want to do things, and God and the rules of the game said you can't do it that way. There are no shortcuts to the rules. The rules we follow today will set up our generations for tomorrow. So it's just not for you, it's for your generations to come. God promised we would live long and prosperous. The rules we don't follow today will be the rules that will hinder us and our next generation from being blessed. So if we choose not to follow the rules, God says, okay, don't follow it. You can have it your own way. But know this. The rules of the game say when you don't follow my rules, I'm able to walk away from you and stay on the sideline, and it gives the enemy right to have his way in your life. And so when the enemy continues to cause chaos and confusion and this and that and things that we don't like, and all these different problems and issues going on in our lives, is because we chose to walk away and follow the rules that God has placed before us. When things are not going our way, we have to ask ourselves, are we following the rules of the game? If we are not following the rules, God says to us, start following my rules. The more we follow the rules, the easier it becomes for us to follow. My message today to you is simply the rules of the game. We can follow and be blessed, or we can decide not to follow and not be blessed. And just because we follow the rules of the game does not mean we're not going to have issues in our life. Because Job told us, man born of a woman a few days old is going to be full of trouble. Meaning, no matter who you are, a believer or a non-believer, trouble is knocking at your door.
That's right.
But the rules of the game will help us to handle our trouble.
Absolutely.
As I said, it's the navigator
Yes, sir.
to get us from point A to point B.
Yes, it is.
The rules of the game. God bless you.